Okay, so this one is for all my brothers out there that deal with anger issues, short fuses. As you probably already know, this can get you into hot water in relationships and really screw up your life if you don't get a handle on it. But I think even just understanding what anger is, the difference between aggression and anger, having some tools to deal with the energy that comes up when there's anger, having mindsets to work with when you're dealing with the stories in your head that are creating the anger when someone is saying or doing something that you're perceiving as a threat and being able to see whether or not it really is a threat. All of these things are going to help you work with your anger more. You don't have to live the rest of your life as a person who cannot control their anger. This is something that everyone can do with a little bit of help. So first, let's talk about what anger is. Anger is often a reaction to a real or perceived threat. Your body is activated and you go into some type of fight response. Now, this can be real, like if someone's attacking you, you're probably going to want to fight back. Some people might want to hide or run away, but it's pretty normal to also feel like you want to fight back to get safe. But it can also be someone just saying something to you, or it's the sense that someone's taking advantage of you. And this often comes up in relationships because it's not always fair. And if you don't feel like you're able to share how you feel about something, even if it's very unskillful, you might start to feel that anger rise. Like someone is trying to manipulate me, take advantage of me, and you don't want that to happen. So you fight back, or you try to explain yourself, and the other person, your partner, gets activated. And now you're both feeling really angry. And this is one of the main patterns that I help couples with because it doesn't take much for someone to get a little bit activated and then they don't know really how to deal with that. Maybe it's a complaint or a side eye or sarcasm or a jab or even your sense that they're not pulling their weight in the relationship in some way. And then the response to that phrase or action is defensiveness. And you come back with something and then they come back with something and then it just flares up. This can happen within a matter of seconds. And sometimes people will get into long, drawn out, hours long disagreements where they're both extremely angry and protective and they're launching grenades at each other and making accusations and blaming each other, not feeling seen, not feeling safe. And then the fallout from that is sometimes people don't recover. They like never recover. Maybe they sweep it under the rug, but they don't ever come back to the thing that happened and they're not able to deal with it. And if this happens enough in a long-term relationship, it can start to feel like, I don't even like this person. We get into disagreements all the time. We're at each other's throats. So what's the point of even being in this relationship? We're both miserable. So I'm just kind of painting a picture as to how things can go if you don't deal with this. And maybe you've already been here before in one or several of your relationships, or maybe you're currently here in your relationship. I think you need to know what's ahead of you if you don't learn how to deal with your anger. And I want to go back to my original point about what anger is. And it's also important to know what anger is not. Anger and aggression are two different things. They can often coexist together. They can also be separated. It's totally possible to feel your anger in a presenced, grounded, skillful way. I would call this clean anger, and to use language that is going to be more palatable to anyone who's in your presence without moving into aggression, verbal attacks, physical violence, punching walls, slamming doors, all those things that really create a lot of problems in your life if you deal with angry outbursts. And this may be the first time that you're ever hearing these two things separated. And I can tell you why. I was never taught this growing up. I assumed that anger meant that you acted angry and you did angry things. And I got into a lot of fights with people, physical fights when I was younger, teenager. And I also got into verbal altercations with my partners whenever something would come up because we just didn't have the skill to deal with it. And even now, it can still be a challenge for me. I don't do anything really mean or say anything really mean to Jenny, but sometimes she can still feel that subtle aggression come up. I kind of like get big. My body language my tone, my facial expression can feel sharp. It can feel threatening. And lucky for me, I have a really sensitive wife. So she's going to respond to even those subtle messages. So I can know pretty quickly if I'm responding from a clean feeling of anger and if I'm able to articulate that in a way that really works for her, or if there's any subtle forms of aggression here and I'm wanting to blame her, she's going to call that out. And you might be saying, why is that a good thing that you have a partner that's really sensitive? And it's a good thing for me because I really want to explore these parts of me, these strategies that come out that aren't helpful in my life. I'm going to treat Jenny the same way I treat myself. So I can also be really harsh and sharp with myself. And anyone who deals with anger issues probably has the same problem. Not only are you really aggressive with others sometimes, you probably do that tenfold with yourself. And there's this misconception, I think, especially with men, that that's what it takes to motivate you. You got to get your ass up, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, get that kick in the ass, and keep moving. And I don't doubt that there's some merit in that. Like sometimes I really do have to be firm with myself and tell myself, yeah, like you can do better here, and to have better boundaries with myself, more self-control, or push myself in ways. But it doesn't mean that I need to be really mean with myself. That doesn't help anybody. That makes me feel like shit, and then often that spills over onto other people. Whether or not I'm saying it, they can feel it. You know that feeling when someone's like annoyed with you? They might not be saying it, but you can tell. That becomes part of your personality and it makes you someone that's hard to be around, or at least in an intimate way. Maybe you can get along with friends well because you don't really interact in the same way you would with a primary partner. But if you're going to live with somebody and marry someone and share finances and children and a lot of your time together, then they're going to notice your personality and all the little anxieties and annoyances that spill over into the relationship or onto them. And I know there's people out there, other guys that would disagree with me on this point, but I don't care. I think I'm right on this one. I've been working with men for 15 years and I see how this works, both internally and externally. I don't think people often understand where the line between passion and being an asshole is, and where being a compassionate partner and being a pushover is. And it can feel like a fine line to walk. I'm not suggesting that you just go passive and shove down your anger. I want to help you deal with your anger so that you can show up confident and centered and strong and also have good outcomes in your relationships. And I don't think that people get this way on their own. This conditioning happens very early in little boys' lives. Parents and society tends to be more rough with boys because there's this sense still that we need to toughen boys up, even if it's just for the sake of holding their own with other boys on the playground, or because we think that men have to have really thick skin so that they can do their jobs well and be powerful and be leaders and take charge. And our society tends to reward that behavior in some ways because leaders who act like that sometimes do get a lot of attention and they can work their way up in industries just by being kind of an asshole and for not having empathy and compassion. That's not all leaders, but it's certainly a strategy that can help you get to the top in some ways. But I can guarantee you it does not help in marriage. And my theory about men who project their anger out onto the world is not that they're strong. It's actually that they're weak. To me, it says that they don't have much capacity for their emotional experience. They are transported back into their 6, 8, 10-year-old self, and they're acting childish. If we were to look at their behavior, just take a little snapshot of how they're behaving with others when you really can't control your anger, you're going to look more like a little kid than you are an adult. And your IQ is going to drop. We have research on that. When people are really, really angry, they actually get stupider. You get stupider. You say dumb things. You are not as able to see reality as it is. You're caught up in projections and stories about what other people are doing that might not even be accurate. It's really a more disempowered place when you go there. And if you've ever had that experience with somebody where you get angry with them, then you start to come down a little bit. All of a sudden, sometimes those feelings will come up like regret, embarrassment. I really knew I shouldn't have said that or done that. You can't tell me that you want to keep going through this over and over again. It's just not fun. It doesn't help you or anyone. So there's a few pieces to this work. One is to understand your own childhood wounds. How did your mom or dad or siblings or the kids in school impact your angry responses? Where do you actually still need to protect yourself in reality? And what's just a projection of some past thing that you're mapping on to the people in your life or the world now? That's the first thing. The second thing is that you actually have to grow your capacity to be with your own anger, be with that energy. So the next time that you feel yourself getting agitated and you want to blow up, you need to learn how to turn that energy inward and take care of yourself here and breathe and hold this so that you can have that experience of your nervous system calming down and so that you can respond from a more intelligent, grounded, secure place. And if you're in a long-term relationship, then you'll probably have plenty of times to practice. So that's good. The third thing is that you actually need to learn new language to communicate your experience. And even though you're going to be speaking English, it's really an entirely different language. You're probably going to end up using words that you don't normally use. And you've probably even heard me use some of those words here. And imagine this. Imagine that your partner comes to you with some complaint. Let's take a smaller one. So, sometimes the bigger ones kind of have a lot attached to them. So your partner comes to you with a smaller complaint, like you forgot to do something. And in that moment, your brain goes to like, well, I told you that I wasn't going to be able to do it because da 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 da. Or I thought that you would see me working on something else and you'd give me some grace, cut me some slack. Whatever that story is, which could be valid. But either way, you feel that energy rise, you feel the anger come in. And instead of going to defense and maybe even attack, you say something like, oh man, I'm noticing I'm feeling angry as you share that with me. I just need to take a minute here. There's something going on. It feels kind of intense. I don't want to spill over onto you with this. Let me just take a minute. I understand that you are upset that I didn't do the thing I said I was going to do. That makes sense. I do want to explain my side, but first, I want to validate that the experience that you're having is real. And thanks for bringing it up. I do want to work through this with you. Think about saying that. On my best days, I make moves like this, and it feels really, really good because A, my wife generally responds really well to that. And we can take something that could have been somewhat of a blow up and make it a 3-minute conversation. And it's not like we need to solve anything, but we immediately diffuse the energy in the situation and we stay connected and it feels good. And then we're both like, yeah, we can do this. No big deal. Avoiding going into disconnection for really no reason is a huge win. And sometimes when I'm working with guys, they're like, I could never imagine saying that, or that's not going to work on my partner, or that sounds kind of contrived and weird for me to say that. And my response is, so what? Doing new things can feel awkward. It can feel like it's not you. That's what we're doing when we're creating real character change. It's going to feel a little bit clunky and weird at times. And yeah, it might not work on the first, second, or third go around really well because you guys aren't used to communicating like this. And if your partner doesn't know how to receive that, it might sound weird to them. But this is the best long-term strategy to learn how to deal with conflict well with your partner. And it helps if both of you can learn this because then you know when you hear your partner say something like that, that they are really trying to use the skills and they won't feel like it's some foreign language that they don't understand. So I hope this was helpful. I know a lot of guys out there deal with angry outbursts, and it's really a form of unnecessary suffering. There's ways that you can learn to deal with this better, get educated, use new skills, and ultimately through that process, heal those wounds within you because they're not going anywhere. You either have to confront them at some point or let them run your life. And I don't know about you, but I do not want my wounds to run my life and screw up my life. It's not necessarily my fault that they're there, but they're my responsibility to deal with. So that's what I got for today. Good luck.